Hello internet, it is me, the gamer musician, back again with another interesting Breath of the Wild discovery. So, has anyone else watching this video paused the new trailer at 0 minutes and 12 seconds? No? Well, I did. And there were a few interesting things to note. There's actually a really nice reference to some of the older games at this snapshot of time. At this exact moment, we can see the house. What house, do you ask? This one. Do you see the BuzzFeed style red circle on the screen? And not only is it a house, but it's also a house which I recognize quite well from another Zelda game. Well, at least I have two big options. Now that I've pointed it out, do you recognize it? And boop. That's correct. It has to either be the house from Ocarina of Time, the Lakeside Laboratory, or Falby's Flight by Fowl from Twilight Princess. Firstly, I'll analyze the reasons why I think so. First off, there's the shape of the house. From what I can make out from the image, which is quite small, it's a multi-layered house. You can see the point of the house where the whole thing appears to be separated. Also, if you look carefully, you'll notice that there is some kind of spire, as well as another conjoined smaller spire, or possibly a flat piece of land, next to it. Finally, it's directly beside a large lake, and when one thinks of lakes in Hyrule, one thinks of the Great Lake Hylia. All of these points display extreme similarities to both the Lakeside Laboratory and the Flight by Fowl. If the building is the Lakeside Laboratory, then the higher spires are obviously just the large spires, which we see very blatantly in Ocarina of Time. The flat section next to it could just be part of the flat roof we see in the game. Though, if it is indeed a conjoined smaller spire like I mentioned before, then it's extremely likely that this house is indeed the Lakeside Laboratory from Ocarina of Time. If we compare the two images side by side, we can see that in the Lakeside Laboratory that we originally see, there is a main building with a tall spire on top of it, which, by the way, has a flat roof for use as a lookout, and another smaller section of the building sticks off the side. If you look carefully at the mystery house from the Breath of the Wild trailer, then we can see the main building there, the spire above it with a flat roof, and another small conjoined section of the house. One other, though extremely light, similarity is the small protrusions that we can see at a couple of places on the roof of the house, which to me appear to be chimneys of some sort, which is something that the Lakeside Laboratory has many of. Of course, with the house like this, it would be easier to perhaps see it from a closer up or of a different angle, but looking at it as we can see it, it does look quite similar to the Lakeside Laboratory we all know and love. The explanations also seem to make sense for Falby's Flight by Fowl, so let's get right into the comparison. The building itself is shown to be quite similar, with the stereotypical house style of two walls and the two diagonals to form the roof, which is something they share. The area next to the house in the trailer could be the large veranda on the side, which is a big feature of the Flight by Fowl, though of course this is only correct for the GameCube and Wii U versions, as the Wii version was mirrored and stuffs this up with the veranda on the right side. Finally, their house is also built on the side of a cliff. But this is where the possibilities of this house in the trailer being the Flight by Fowl disappear. You see, the building in Breath of the Wild is actually not built on the side of a cliff, but on top of a cliff. Also, those lines at the top of the building I mentioned, that could be chimneys on the Lakeside Laboratory, well, if we're using the Flight by Fowl theory, then these lines don't make any sense. Also, I don't think that section off the side actually looks like the veranda. So, yeah. So by now, we've concluded that the house on the cliff there is actually the Lakeside Laboratory from Ocarina of Time. But that's not where I'm gonna let that theory end, because I don't think that's where the analysis can end. I still have a few more things to say. So, I've spoken about the Flight by Fowl, and I'm hoping that this might have given you enough time to notice the big, gaping flaw in the Lakeside Laboratory theory. Have you? How about if I put the two full images up on screen at the same time? Yep, you can't miss this. The cliff size is far too different. And no matter how much I looked, no matter how hard I looked, there was no official point in Ocarina of Time which showed us such a large cliff. However, I don't really see that as a very big issue. The world in Breath of the Wild is 12 times larger than the world in Twilight Princess, which in turn is significantly larger than the map of Ocarina of Time. And if we look at the sizes of the surrounding cliffs of Lake Hylia in Twilight Princess, it's hard not to see the difference in size. So, it does make sense for the entirety of the world to be bigger in every sense in Breath of the Wild. But even I don't think the scale changes can change the size of the cliff that much. But you see, this puny cliff in Ocarina of Time is not the only example of the cliff we see in this game. Oh no, we get a much bigger cliff right now. I'm fairly certain anyone who's played through Ocarina of Time will recognize this section of the game, and if you haven't played through Ocarina of Time, play it? But yes, this is the adult section of Ocarina of Time, prior to the completion of the Water Temple. At this point in the game, the Water Temple is still under the control of Ganondorf, Morpha is still in the boss room, and the Sage of Water still hasn't been awakened. At this point in time, the lake's level has dropped a lot. Thus, the cliffs surrounding the lake are actually a lot higher, as well as the gradients of the slope being a lot shallower. This is of course due to the large portion of the lake disappearing. And lo and behold, if we look at the cliffs around Lake Hylia in Breath of the Wild, you can see the gradient slopes of the bottom of the cliffs. You see, from what we've seen so far in the exactly 4 seconds of footage, I am concluding that Lake Hylia appears to be held inside of something known in the real world as a basin. No, not that kind of basin. There we go, that's the ticket. Now, there are many different kinds of basins out there, but in general, these basins are geographical depressions, or in simpler words, points in the land which are lower than the surrounding areas. Now, I did a bit of digging through Wikipedia, and discovered the type of basin that we may be looking at here. From our limited view, I think that Lake Hylia in Breath of the Wild will be inside of an endorheic basin, sometimes called a closed sea. These are those basins where water is retained, and there is no outflow to other regions or external bodies of water. And I can kinda see that, at least in the lake's current state. I can kinda see a line of where the water would probably have gone to before. It should be on screen right now. And trust me, we're really gonna need those iron boots to get to the bottom. And if the water is back at the height I'm expecting it to be, the distance between the lake and the house is, to be honest, quite comparable between the distance of the lake and the house in Ocarina of Time, taking all into account. But I think you will stop listening to me about 352 words, if I follow the script exactly, ago, when I just finished saying Water Temple for the first time. So come back out of your childhood traumas. Hey, listen! Thank you. Okay, so now that you're all back, this game is going to have a Water Temple. Now, I know it may seem kind of obvious, but at the same time, Nintendo is aiming to break the conventions of Zelda with this game. But if my theory is correct, we will need to clear a water temple in this game, as per usual. From what I seem to have heard a lot around the internet, there are only going to be 4 main dungeons. And if this is true, I think it is quite likely that one of them is going to be a water temple. As with Ocarina of Time, Ganon has taken over Lake Hylia. It is an extremely important position in Hyrule, what with the large body of water and the connections to Zora's Domain and Snow Peak. So what can we infer about this water temple? Well, it's obviously going to be new water-based puzzles designed expressly with the purpose of irritating me to no end. In Twilight Princess, I got confused. In Ocarina of Time, I got confused, even with the walkthrough. In Majora's Mask, my save file got corrupted midway through the water temple. So, I'm not a big fan of these water puzzle things. Also, we can assume that it'll probably be at the bottom of the lake, wherever the deepest part of this lake is. Finally, we can assume that the final boss of this temple is going to be Morpha, or something like that, as it was in Ocarina of Time. Morpha is the one who physically took away all the water in Ocarina of Time, by the way, if you didn't know. After completing the dungeon, then we can finally fill the lake back up again, breaking above the endorheic basin. And it may refill some of the rivers and lakes elsewhere in Hyrule. I mean, that's just all speculation, but it would be really interesting to see just how much they can annoy me with a new water temple, and it'll be great to see Hyrule's geographical changes after its completion due to other lakes filling. Anyway, that's all I've got for you this time, but before I go into my usual outro, look at my channel's new cover art. It was drawn by a great friend of mine and I love it so much. You can find her at either a DeviantArt or a Tumblr, and she even does commissions if you wanted to draw something for you. There are links in the description of this video and my channel's about page if you want to ask her to draw something for you. Also, expect a vlog style update video on a bunch of topics sometime in the next week or so. Anyways, don't forget to like this video, comment on this video telling me of any mistakes I made, things you liked, or your own theories relating to the water temple and the Lakeside Laboratory. Maybe give the video a share on any or all social medias you want. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to me for some more video game music themed videos from The Gamer Musician.